Year. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to all my viewers tuning in today. This show can be seen on Roku and Roku Fire TV 6 and Amazon Fire TV 6 and on ZingoTV on Chromecast and all smart TVs 2016 forward. Please remember to download the Barn Burner and ZingoTV apps in their respective app stores. Both are free on both iOS and Android devices. While you're using, please remember to rate and leave a comment so we know that you're enjoying them and getting the most out of your usage. So, on this episode of 6 and 6, I do not have a guest this week. I'm hoping to have Sarah Steele, one of the newest members of the Toronto 6, on next week. But for that reason, let's get into some other things. As I had Samantha Ridgewell on last week, and we'll reflect upon my conversation with her. But among other things, just before that conversation took place, the Toronto 6 announced a new partnership. So that's what we're going to start with on this episode. So the Toronto 6 are partnered with Blue Blazer Events Group, a sports-minded event management agency specializing in sports hospitality, team travel, and corporate events. In a statement from Digit Murphy, head coach and president of the Toronto 6, she said, "We are thrilled to partner with another business who buys into our mission and wants to support what the Toronto 6 are all about. While travel can be difficult in the world right now, Blue Blazer will help get the 6 to Lake Placid smoothly and safely so we can worry about winning games and bringing home the Isabel Cup. Blue Blazer will manage travel suppliers, coordinating custom logistics, and ensure comfortable and safe journeys for Toronto 6 players and staff to Lake Placid in January 2021. In a statement from Jim McGuire, the president of Blue Blazer Events Group, he said, "We are excited to support the travel planning for the Toronto 6 Hockey Club on their important trip to the 2021 season. The 6 will utilize Blue Blazer's travel management services to ensure players and staff travel and arrive safely in Lake Placid and back home. Being involved with the team and especially women's professional hockey is exciting for us, and we look forward to helping the Six get their first year operation started on a successful note." So, that being said, again, these are unusual times, hence the bubble in Lake Placid, New York. But with that said, there aren't enough challenges to come by, and for that reason, everyone is staying positive in regards to the situation. So, it's a really great thing to see that this team is continuing to come together. Again, their last signing was Emily Fluke, who is now a veteran of the National Women's Hockey League. She played last year with the Boston Pride, and from what I'm hearing, the Toronto 6 are ready, or just about ready to announce, rather, maybe 4 or 5 signings. To round out their roster, Digit Murphy did say on her Instagram about a week or two back at Kenland Ice Sports during a practice that the Toronto 6 will have a full roster. And, sources have told me different things, but having heard that, paperwork was being awaited and the rest was, to fall in place otherwise. Some really positive news for the Toronto 6. So something to keep in mind. So, apologies for the error. Here's what I have learned with that regard. As the Toronto 6 continue to practice at Kenland Ice Sports before heading to Lake Placid, the Puck Authority has learned that the roster is now full, composed of local fourth liners and a 6th defender. At this point, all are skating with the 6th, league announcements pending. Touching further on this note, I can confirm that none of those players are current or graduated players from Ryerson. Paperwork pending before official announcements. So, that being said, the only reason I obviously mentioned the Ryerson aspect is because Lisa Haley is the assistant coach alongside Digit Murphy, which makes for an all-female coaching staff, by the way. However, that being said, I've spoken with Olivia Giardetti, one of the couple players who were on my mind as potential players, who told me that she was interested and had spoken preliminarily with Lisa about the possibility. But that being said, otherwise, she didn't end up being one of those players to be at practice and opt for a position. And she's not even done at Ryerson yet, which is also something I'd like to note. So sure, she's a strong player, but with the U Sports eligibility banner hanging over, it's something to really, I guess, think about and have to understand that there are certain rules that still have to be followed, and that, of course, one of them. So that being said, another player who I had on my mind was Krishanda Green, who has obviously graduated at this time, but that being said, Krishanda was not a player either who has attended practice, again, as those 5 players are just trying to get their paperwork in before the final announcements are made from the Toronto Six and NWHL at this time. So that being said, Mike Murphy wrote an article on December 16th for the Ice Garden with regards to the Toronto Six and the filling out the rest of their roster. And this, of course, was before I retrieved that information from a source on the current going-ons of the roster. So that being said, let's get into this article a little bit. We're now a little under 2 months away from the start of the 2020-21 NWHL season, and the Toronto Six have 18 players under contract. Since trading Kelly Babstock to the Metropolitan Riveters on October 15, the Six were eerily quiet before making waves with the signing of two-time All-Star Emily Fluke on December 14th. Before Fluke signed, the most recent addition was forward Mackenzie McNeil, who signed on July 22nd. That was 4 months ago. On paper, the Six have plenty of talent, but they feel a bit like a skeleton crew, especially on the blue line. Toronto has 12 forwards, 2 goaltenders, and 4 defenders under contract. Naturally, one or two of those forwards could move back to the blue line, but that's hardly an ideal solution. That approach seems especially perilous heading into a 14-day marathon in a sport where injuries are frequent, if not inevitable. There's also the potential of a player or players having to be quarantined and deemed ineligible as a result of COVID-19 testing. Starting to get the picture, the Six need a bigger number before January 25th arrives. And like I said, they will. I've been informed that is on the way. Now, Ontario has more women's hockey players than any other state or province in North America, but the vast majority of the players who played in the CWHL with the Brampton Thunder, or rather Markham Thunder, and Toronto Furies have declared for the PWHPA. One way or another, the PWHPA's presence in Ontario has been a factor in General Manager Mandy Cronin's efforts to build an NWHL roster in Toronto. But that hasn't stopped Cronin from signing 11 natives of the Six's home province, being Toronto and Ontario. Interestingly enough, the NWHL short schedule could make playing pro hockey a reality for some players who couldn't commit to a full season, which, according to a source, might just be the case with those, who are, again, just about ready to be announced. Again, I'm still waiting further details, if anything, before those players are signed. But that being said, something to look out for. In Fluke's case, relocating to Toronto for a standard season might have been out of the question, but 2 weeks in Lake Placid was doable. Chances are it will be doable for other players as well. One player that comes to mind is St. Lawrence University alumna Brooke Webster, who played with the Six's Emma Woods on the 2017-18 Vankie Rays. The same could be said of Clarkson standout Kaylee Mercer, who was someone who I was also looking at just around this time as a potential person of interest. She spent 2 seasons in China in the CWHL, was someone who stood out to me rather. And with that being said, head coach Digit Murphy has shown her interest in overseas players, again, getting Brooke Boquist and Emma Woods. So for me, this felt like something that might not be out of the question. However, again, given that we are kind of nearing the actual puck drop in Lake Placid, perhaps it's not ideal, especially knowing that these players have to practice in a 14-day quarantine in Canada. Would be hard in terms of getting enough ice time to feel okay and comfortable, given that she remains unsigned. However, she is the most present player of the bunch, as Brooke Webster Brooke Webster hasn't played for 2 years. Kaylee Mercer just hasn't been signed for this year. And then there's also former NWHL and CWHL Rebecca Vint, who hasn't played since 2017-18, who Mike Murphy notes is currently the director of hockey operations for a school in Ontario as a hockey director. And so for me, that's not even an option. I wouldn't go after someone who at this point has established a career and is pretty much done in professional hockey. But Kaylee Mercer was obviously someone on the top of my mind who is not yet done. So that being said, are any of the above players open to the idea of playing 2 weeks of professional hockey? Cronin and the Six won't have the answer to that question until they reach out to them. But the focus for the moment needs to be adding to the blue line. There are several potential targets out there, including defenders who are currently playing in Europe, like Morgan Kelly from Göteborg, Abby Cook from Djurgården, and Sarah LeCavier from Malmo. Asking a player to pull up her roots mid-season to return home is definitely asking a lot, but the Six do have some exceptional recruiters at the helm in Digit Murphy and Mandy Cronin. Another talent pool that Toronto should definitely be looking into is U Sports Alumni, which is where I mentioned the likes of Krishanda Green and Olivia Giardetti. Defenders like Taylor Davison of York University, Alexandra Woods of St. Thomas University, and Gabriella Smith of the University of Guelph are all potential targets, as Mike Murphy mentions too. But those are just 3 of the Ontario natives who graduated last year, so the names mentioned above are just the tip of the iceberg. Again, you have to remember Ryerson is, probably the first school that Digit would have gone to anyways, again, with Lisa Haley being her assistant coach and the head coach of the Ryerson Rams women's hockey team. He also mentions we've seen players from U Sports Division 3, the ACHA, and Europe all find success in the NWHL, and this roster that the Toronto Six are composed of have a mix of all of that. Obviously, there's a huge difference between doing some research after pulling up some names from EliteProspects.com and actually scouting and recruiting and players. But here's the thing: we all know that the Six need more players. The question now is, who will they be, and when? Who they will be, and when they'll join the team. Something tells me the Six and every other NWHL team wants to have as many practices as a full team as possible before going into the bubble and preparing for the spring that will be the 2020-21 season. Will other signings follow the addition of Fluke? We'll soon find out. The clock is ticking, and Digit Murphy is not concerned from what I've gathered. Signings are on the way. It could be a matter of time. So, for any of you Toronto Six fans out there tuning in today who might show some sign of, being concerned, don't be concerned. Don't be. Digit's fantastic. She is a standout human as she is a coach of 23 years in both assistant and head coaching roles, from the NCAA to China, professional women's hockey in the CWHL. Again, the NCAA Brown University for 18 years as a head coach and 3 as an assistant coach. And now the NWHL as the president and head coach of the Toronto Six. So that being said, let's take a look at the roster that the Toronto Six have. And we're going to start to break this down. While there isn't really a whole lot else to talk about today, I will go into the Toronto Six magazine afterwards. So again, the current roster looks like this. That includes Taylor Woods, Sarah Steele, Mackenzie McNeil, Brandon Wilson-Bennett, Macaulay Grant Mentees, Brooke Boquist, Kristen Barbara, Amy Curlew, Natalie Marcuzzi, Sarah Evkatu-Gutbu, Emma Greco, Cheyenne Darkangelo, Elaine Chuli, Samantha Ridgewell, Lindsay Eastwood, Emma Woods, and Jenna McParland. So that being said, I recently spoke with Samantha Ridgewell about the NBC deal that the NWHL signed for the Isabel Cup semifinals and final game in Lake Placid at Herb Brooks Arena. And so I just wanted to give you guys some reaction from that conversation that I had with her. So that being said, let's get into that because she spoke very highly of Tyler Tumminia, and I will go into Tyler Tumminia afterwards, and something that she said, which I think really resonates with the community of not only the NWHL, but obviously the state that is professional women's hockey right now. So that being said, speaking with Samantha Ridgewell, she said to me about this deal, yeah, I mean, she crushed it. The whole league and everybody behind it. I mean, I can't applaud them enough for what they were able to accomplish with this deal. I mean, I got so many texts pouring in saying, oh my gosh, you're going to have to make it all the way so we can watch you on TV now, stuff like that. So it's fun to have that type of support too. And I mean, even I scrolled through Twitter. Every time I opened my Twitter yesterday, it was another new tweet from somebody, how pumped they were about this big news and how important it is for women's hockey. So yeah, I mean, it's huge for women's hockey. I think they were saying it's the first time that professional women's hockey will actually be broadcasted on live TV aside from the Olympics. I mean, it really doesn't get much better than that. And surely it does not. So just a couple, notes to keep in mind. So, these players are really super excited about the opportunity to get to play in Lake Placid. And again, we see players such as Kaylee Hutchison from the Metropolitan Riveters also comment saying, this is such a huge step for the NWHL and women's professional hockey, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. Thank you to the NWHLPA, NWHL, and our commissioner for all the hard work they've put in to get us here. So that being said, let's touch on something Tyler Tumminia said now that I think is really resonating, again, with the state of the game right now, and it's epic for the league and what it does for our brand, but it's so important for young girls and boys to be able to see female athletes on television like this and not just once every 4 years. Now, Tyler Tumminia was the former chairwoman of the Toronto Six before she accepted the role as interim commissioner, taking over for Danny Ryland, who again is at the helm of an ownership group called W Hockey Partners to find private ownership for the Buffalo Buttes, the Metropolitan Riveters, the Connecticut Whale, and with that, the Minnesota Whitecaps. So that being said, this is a groundbreaking, event to be able to pull off the bubble for women's hockey, and at a time where they were almost the only hockey before the NHL established their January 13th return, but still, nonetheless, will have a ton of attention turned towards them. Again, they will be on primetime television with NBC, and it's the first time that women's professional hockey will be broadcasted live on a major American cable network. So, huge ups to Tyler Tumminia and the NWHL. And then they ended up, keeping the excitement rolling, announcing earlier this month that there will be an all-female officiating staff for this upcoming season, Lake Placid. So another holiday gift among the many that Tumminia and the NWHLPA has already achieved. Some exciting times are ahead for the Toronto Six, and this just outlines, the start of it, because there's so much more to come. And being able to, see it all kind of coming together is really special. So that being said, for the last, 9 minutes, let's get into the digital magazine a little bit, because I read a little bit through last week, but I didn't touch a whole lot on it. So, today I'll get a little more specific with the time we have left. Also, the Leafs Nation wrote an article kind of outlining everything that the Toronto Six have been through from start to where we are now. So you can also look for that at theleafsnation.com. They start in outlining, the acquisition of Digit Murphy as their head coach, and then the new jerseys to dress the team, and then the locker room, the most, the most new acquisition to establish their mark as a professional women's hockey team at Canlan Ice Sports. And then the NBC deal, of course, a testament to how far pro women's hockey has come. So, again, there is an article on the Victory Press from one of their own writers saying the new home of the Toronto Six in regards to the city, not the arena. And that's a really, really well done article, kind of speaking about, how the Toronto Six are presented with an opportunity to be a difference maker in the Jane and Finch community, where they call home, which has been known as a, controversial location, I think is what I'll say, but Canlan Ice Sports nonetheless. They offered a locker room and, the Scotiabank Pond, where they started off practicing back in the summer, late August, did not. So, nothing against them, of course. Quality facilities there, and the facilities at Canlan Ice Sports, of course, have been made quality in favor of the Toronto Six. So, something to keep in mind. And it's just this is exactly what they needed. They needed to be shown that they're professionals. But the one problem, I guess, being is that they can't start off at home, and that's troubling, because they wanted to. And, again, conversations were for, several months now, before the bubble became a conversation, that, Canlan was willing to have them at home to start the season with about 200 fans approximately in their 1,000 seat, Olympic ice sheet arena. So, it's not what they wanted, but this bubble does put direct attention on professional women's hockey as a whole, rather than just, what they would usually do and just be on Twitch. And Twitch has been, it's been a great start for the NWHL, but, obviously they've been looking for more. And for Toronto, now the question is, with NBC striking a deal in the United States, will the NWHL and TSN come to terms to put the Toronto Six on Canadian television at the same time? That way Canadian viewers don't have to just watch on Twitch. And that remains a question yet to be answered. And so we wait those several player signings. We also wait to see should TSN or CBC step up to carry the Toronto Six games in Lake Placid as well. I'm hoping the answer to that is yes, but at the same time, it's very difficult. But the TSN covering the World Juniors right now is, I think, primarily the worry, but that at the same time, that ends January 5th, so there shouldn't exactly be all that much concern. And then CBC, ideally, they could make room for it. They cover Hockey Night in Canada, and that's just Saturday nights. But aside from that, I don't really think it should be much of a challenge for CBC to put professional women's hockey on the air, deservingly so, on actual television, aside from just what it is. So, just a couple thoughts that are, of course, are on my mind as we continue to understand the leaps and bounds that make professional women's hockey professional. Because again, you have to remember that in the CWHL, a lot of these guys, or a lot of these teams rather, were guided by their owners or their commissioners, their board of directors, and to that end, they were only guided so much into the fact that they were playing in community arenas, community centers, and Canada Night Sports. When you look at like Scotiabank Arena, Canada Night Sports is a stretch, and so it goes to show that professional women's hockey still has ways to go. And the Toronto Six are going to be playing on the York Lions home ice, and it will have the York Lions logo when they return, because York wasn't supposed to play this year, which would have made way for Toronto to play on their ice. And what would have been really nice is to recognize a pro women's hockey team and put the Toronto Six logo at center ice, make them feel more at home rather than playing on an amateur ice. And at Scotiabank Arena, for example, you're a full NHL facility. This is what professional women's hockey deserves. And so at Lake Placid, at least they're getting that. The NWHL Isabel Cup logo will be at center ice. There will be amenities when it comes to locker rooms. There's a brand new lighting and sound system. They'll be well taken care of, and whether they're at the arena or not. In the hotels, my understanding is they will be able to hang out with each other, and I mean that with their own teams, not mixing teams, just to avoid COVID contamination and a widespread outbreak, because they do know that they have to be responsible. And among their stay, because women and men are not in the same place with regards to professional hockey, the women are going to come with their own outside work that they're going to have to do in their hotel rooms. So between that and working out and hanging out with their own teams when they're not working, there's not going to be much room for error. So, and of course, that comes with, of course, playing these 5 regular season games, each heading into the Isabel Cup playoffs, which again, we'll start with the play-in round, go into the semifinals, and then into the Isabel Cup. So, either way, look, in regards with the locker room, this is the first time that an ownership has put down money for a locker room for a professional women's hockey team. So first continue to be made. We're continuing to see the hard work of, Digit Murphy and her team. But, excuse me, it all comes with, hard work. And, when Digit was assigned the role back in April, she didn't know what she was in for, especially with the, onwards challenges that are the PWHPA and how many players that they have committed to them. And with that, how they'd be able to outreach to players. But, Digit Murphy, no problem. Sweden, the NCAA, the PWHPA, that's just, a start. And so, whatever she's got in the bag now, exciting things are on the way. So for those exciting things, make sure you're following along on Twitter at the Toronto Six for that official announcement of those players, and at WHL. And for your continuous inside information on the organization, you can follow me on Twitter at Justin Levine HBS, and make sure you're watching this show, Six and Sticks, right here on the Barn Burn TV Network and ZINGOTV channel 250 every week, right here at 2:30 p.m. And I'll give you your weekly dose of Toronto Six women's professional hockey. So that does it for me. My name is Justin Levine. Again, make sure you know where to follow me. Follow my latest work at thepuckauthority.com. Again, I'm in conversation every couple of weeks with players to help with stories and, get to know them, understand their thoughts on, the Lake Placid bubble, coming to Toronto to play women's hockey, because, there are so many different angles to choose from. And, you look at Brooke Boquist, Emma Woods, and Samantha Ridgewell, just to name a few, and you understand, those differences and, the privilege it is to play here. So again, follow me on Twitter at Justin Levine HBS for more. I hope to have Sarah Steele on next week. But other than that, this show for the week is done. Again, make sure you're following the Toronto Six at NWHL at Justin Levine HBS, and I will be back next week in the new year, that is 2021. My name is Justin Levine. Social distance, wash your hands, stay safe.